kind of brought our guys in yesterday. They didn't have a practice, so I've always, 12 years as head coach, whenever we're 7 days out, have given those guys a day to kind of get their feet back under them, get under it. They'll practice today. It'll be like, this is like a Sunday of a game week for us, so we'll, when we have bye weeks and extra preparation, we use this day as kind of a 8-period, just real crisp, good tempo, all 4 phases of kicking game. Really begin to incorporate our guys that are going to travel to the game. One of the unique things that's changed a little bit with the Little Rock game is we're going to travel a 72 or 74-man roster because it's not limited by SEC rules because it's not an SEC game. So we'll have a travel party, but then we'll also bring over a group on the day of the game that will dress out guys that have eligibility or guys that can play by eligibility standards. So it'll be a little bit larger roster than a normal game, but. From a health standpoint, guys are engaging back into practice, other than the guys that had some long-range issues. But we're going to plan on, right now, Jay Red and TJ Hammonds are both incorporated in the game plan. We'll let them practice out this week and make a decision probably next Tuesday, whether or not they'll play or not, depending on reps by then. So release the depth chart and probably wasn't any big news to anybody, but that's just kind of a starting point. It's based a lot on, obviously, some of the guys were a little bit limited during fall camp with some different injuries if they're not listed in too deep, so that could be an evolution over the first couple game weeks. So really, that's about it. Excited to watch them play tomorrow. We'll take it in as a team. They'll play at 11 o'clock on ESPNU, so we got it set up to actually watch the first half here together, offensively, defensively, and then we'll go into some special teams meeting. And then as coaches, we'll stay in the rest of the day and make some modifications after we see who's lined up where and what their if there's any schematical changes from what they did a year ago. So with that, open up for questions. You know what, Nate? Dwayne has had a really good camp. I'd go all the way back to January when we made the transition to a 3-4. He's always been a little bit better on the outside looking in. If you play inside backer, your vision is always, sideline to sideline. When you're an outside linebacker, your vision always goes in directionally for the most part, and he just plays a little bit better in that avenue. Has had a great fall camp. Developed his body very, very well, and him and Randy are by far our 2 best outside backers at this point. You know what? We're gonna great question. We're gonna redshirt Grayson. Just where he was at, and had a shoulder injury and surgery after last season, so he missed all the development in the spring, and to kind of space out that group of tight ends are all in that class together. When he played a year ago, just sat him down about 2 weeks ago, and commonly mutually came to that decision and put him in a pretty heavy developmental lift phase to get back on track and complete his career, obviously.
Will and Shane coming on a little bit help make that easier?
Yes and no. They're kind of different tight ends. We use our tight ends in different ways. I would say Grayson is probably a little bit more right now at that projection. He definitely runs really well, catches the ball very well, but needed a little bit of physical development to play at this level in the run game. On the flip side of it, I think Will Gregg in particular and CJ and also Jack Krause have all had really nice fall camps. Jeremy Patton has continued to come along and do very, very well. So, and then obviously Austin Cantrell, I think you'll see 5 of those guys play.
So Brandon Martin's in that group of guys you're talking about?
He is. Tom, he missed probably maybe like a week and a half, right before we started up FAMU preparation. So he's out there. He was running with the big end. Just the last 2 practices. So I do think as he gets healthier and stays engaged, he's a 3-year eligibility player, so he doesn't have a redshirt year, but he has 3 years here in our program that we can utilize him.
So headed beside you, just another season opener ready to go, or anything left over from last year, wanting to get it out of your mind?
I think at this point everybody just kind of focuses in on the whether we were coming off a Big Ten championship or this last year coming off a 7-6, whatever it is. I think you're just eager to get out there and practice, and really for the kids, I think more than anything to have the challenge of a game day and play somebody different.
Just regardless of score, for kind of halftime, just how important is a big second half?
Fast start, well, I think one of our things that we've talked about is starting both halves off fast, and obviously if we go back to last year, you can keep bringing that up, but I think this group is focused on the last half of everything they've done since January, the last half of workout, the last half of practice, the last half of everything should be fun to watch.
Last year, you guys, in the big games, really only played 3 safeties for the most part. Do you feel like you're going to go a little bit deeper there, and is Buster going to have a chance to?
You know, Buster got with us, has been with us all this week. Today is actually the first day he can go in full pad, so he's been a little bit limited there, just from a physical standpoint. But I would say right now he's not in the mix for this first game. I would think at safety it still would probably be that mixed time. I think Josh Liddell has probably had he's played as good a football as he's played this fall. Drake Coley has played very, very well as well, and then Santos is playing at a high level. So those three, Reed Miller would probably be the next guy, or K. Rich. K. Rich can play in there at safety as well.
I think you said the other day, Coach Kelly kicked a couple good punts, but you got him listed as number 2 guy.
Yeah.
What all went into that? Was he really just somewhere having a break with his cold?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll see when he hits them. I mean, it'll probably surprise the people what he can do talent-wise. Also, Colin Limpert can also hit the ball. He's a left-footed punter, so just strategically on the field, might use him in different spots as well. But the plan would be if Blake is hitting the ball while he has all fall camp, he'd be the guy that handles all of them.
So Cole's okay at the drops and getting it off?
Yeah, he's got a great operation time. He works every day with the number 2 punters, number 2 snapper, and all the operations that we do during number 2 punt. Sometimes if I want him to stay with the Qs, I might use Colin and Mazza as well, but with the 2s. But Austin Allen punts as well. So it's kind of our quarterbacks. Both of those guys have opportunity to punt.
Brett, you said you wanted to have a swing backup tackle, swing guard.
Yeah. Well, I said that, and a guy that's really probably had 2 weeks of practice, Paul Ramirez. I think if he continues to play the last 4 or 5 days here in our preparation, he could definitely be that backup left tackle. And then at right tackle, we've repped Johnny Gibson as well at right tackle, as well as B. Wall and Jake Rollerson.
Malik Williams, if you thought about redshirting him the way that he came on.
Yeah, but I think Malik's situation, I think right now we're leaning towards probably playing him. I think we'll make a decision obviously next week on Tuesday or Wednesday, but he's been able to get reps. We've been trying to limit David, and we didn't have a lot of running. Usually you have 5 or 6 running backs on scholarship. We just didn't have that number, so we were very cautious during camp to not overtax our running backs, to just over rep them for this season that they got in front of us. So Malik's looked really good. Unfortunately, he lost his grandpa, so we're going to have to send him all the way back to Jamaica here in about 10 days, so that's kind of factoring into it as well. Obviously, that'll be right in the middle of a preparation week as well. TJ Hammonds? Yeah, so he repped all. We didn't go yesterday, so what was, I get my days messed up, but Wednesday, I guess it was, repped at tailback the whole time. Today, the first half of our practice, he'll rep only at tailback, and then we'll pop into wide receiver during a couple Skelly sessions.
Maybe a lot of guys doing kickoff returns going on the depth chart. We've got Stewart and Mann.
I think that, and the only other guy that, just because we were listed only 2 guys, I think the other guys that would be in the mix, Jordan Jones could be back there, Brandon Martin, Davion Warren, and Gerard Barnes. Chase as a kick man, not as a punt man. Chase could possibly be as a kick man, yep. I'm sorry, yeah, kickoff return, yeah. Brandon Martin, Jordan, the guys that we got listed, Stewart and Nance, which would probably be our first 2. We're running a scheme where there's 2 back deep. We got another scheme where there's 3 back deep, like 1 point man and 2 off to the side. And those would incorporate Jordan Jones, Brandon Martin, Davion Warren, and Gerard Barnes.
Were you guys holding Jared Cornelius back a little bit just to give the back more time to get ready?
Yeah, I think, and the part that when you're dealing with the back, really, there's, like when you see a knee, it swells up, or an ankle, it swells, with the back. Since I've been doing this as a head coach, you really rely on what the information he's giving you. Obviously, we can take some different medical approaches with MRIs and CAT scan, all that stuff to get real detailed picture. But I think Jared, the conversation I had with him going back to when we pulled him out of fall camp, is he's got to be great about how he feels and what he feels like. He literally was just in my office a half hour ago, very excited. The program that he did this morning with Matt in the training room, he said he felt the best he's ever felt. So we'll piece him in there a little bit next week and then make a decision on game day.
You've got 8 wide receivers listed in 2 spots in competition that years.
It is. I would say, I don't know, I think we listed Davion, right? Davion Warren and Petway, well, there's no doubt Jay Red, Dion, Jordan Jones, Michael Petway are all going to play. T.J. Hammonds as well. And then I think Davion Warren, Colin Jackson, Jonathan Nance, Brandon Martin, and a little bit of River Warnock. Those guys all could kind of see some playing time. Some of those guys, obviously, it factors in because they got a redshirt year available for them if they want. And then also Davion and in particular, Davion and Gerard Barnes both could help us in the return game.
You mentioned that this is your 5th year. I mean, you've recruited everybody on the team.
Players and coaches.
Do you feel like you're in a position that, like, to contend in the West this year?
Well, I feel this. Every year I feel the same. I just the demeanor is a little bit more this year than I think in past. They got a little more edge to them. I think they're very coachable. If I say something, it literally happens. I mean, there's no hesitation. I think it shows the maturity of the group. These 4 captains have been absolutely phenomenal about guiding this football team. I think there's some leadership away from the captains as well that is pretty dominant. I like the fact that the defense has really probably played as well in the last 2 to 3 weeks and responded very well to Coach Rhodes and their teaching. And I like the comfort and the value of having that entire offensive staff back with all those kids that have played.
Think about your coordinators,
Mm-hmm.
what do those guys that have some fire, passion?
Yeah.
See that come out
Right.
more this year?
Well, both have the experience factor of being a head coach, and I think once you're a head coach, it just raises your awareness of the value of time. I think that you never really value that until you're in this role and realize, the restrictions that you have, the amount of reps you got to take every advantage of, not just game day reps, your practice reps, and the importance of everybody doing their job. And I think Dan obviously is a very, very intense coach, but he's got a great feel for these kids now, being involved with it. I think the part that Paul would tell you really has helped him is he was here. It's not like we're bringing a new coordinator that has to know all these guys for the first time. He knows them from a year ago. He knows their strengths, maybe their weaknesses, their fleas a little bit. I just think I'm very, very impressed and very blessed, those 2 guys, to have the perspective and the voice that they have.
Jim Alex coached here. Have you bumped into him at any?
I think I have met him. He's a former Iowa guy too, so yeah, I know we know a lot of the same people, and then obviously his time here as an assistant coach. I know just different people I've bumped into this summer that remembered him, and it'll be a great game.
You guys do like a secret Iowa thing?
No secret Iowa hand that I'm aware of. I was never a part of that.
Coach Enos had mentioned that the first 2 scrimmages that he wanted more out of the running game. How has that looked the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think the part there that has jumped out more than anything, Mike, is the Chase Hayden. So kind of knew what Deval was, and really David Williams will remind you a lot running style wise, a little bit of Raleigh's game. He's got good bounce, good downhill speed, but also very, very good with his hands. So those 2 guys, and then the addition of Chase Hayden has brought a new element that's been fun to watch.
What about the O-line? They seem to pass block in those scrimmages maybe better.
They have. They've made a nice stride there. Again, Kurt has been with them now going into his 2nd year. I think the development of Yelda, I tell you, Colton Jackson's had a really nice camp. His maturity has jumped up big time. Ty Clary is going to get some opportunity in there at guard as well, in addition to, possibility of Johnny Gibson and B. Wall over on that right tackle spot, and then also Jake Rowlson, Zach Rogers. So there's guys in there. Jalen Merrick has had one of the better camps, and again, Paul Ramirez the last 10 days has probably had as good a football as he's played.
Since Paul was up in the box last year, now he's back down the field, which I'm guessing he feels more comfortable. It seemed like the film's been kind of going a little ballistic at times. But yeah, I think, he knows you're the head coach now. Do you probably fiery, but not?
Well, no, I never give my coaches any, I'll say something if I think it's getting out of control. But Paul has a way of verbally being loud without yelling, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? He's a very assertive. As a coach, it's a very rare breed that has that. I think kids really respond to him. I really like the way that I've witnessed our defensive players respond to his criticism. Sometimes kids, you can tell by body language, shut you off or tune you out, and they're very, very receptive to Paul. And he's hard on them, but it's not in a demeaning way. he's not a vulgar guy, doesn't use language, doesn't use that tactic. It's more about challenging them, and I think it's been very responsive.
You know, Coach Lonnie as coordinator in waiting, is that why it's important for you to have him in the group?
Barry's just always been there. I think he's got really good eyes. I think a quarterback just naturally, the position he played in college, he's able to see the run and a pass. I think sometimes when you get guys that are focused in on one thing, they tend to tune into that a little too much. I think Barry's his game day demeanor is great. Even just Barry's approach to everything, he's pretty status quo, and I think that demeanor upstairs is good.
Quinn's going to be on the radio team
Yeah.
this year, and he was there last night.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with Quinn? How do you think he's going to do?
Well, he obviously did halftime interviews for me the last couple of years, and I thought a lot of you guys were there, Coach Broyles thing. I saw a side of him there I'd never seen, and I gave him kudos. I thought he knocked it out of the park, and then last night Pat and I were driving away and we listened to the radio show, and I thought he did a nice job there. He's very talented, very gifted in that, and don't know him really as a player. I know he's a good player, but I think the part that's really, really cool is to have someone that believes in that, that's in that position, that believes in the Razorback program, and I know he wants to have success. I think he'll knock it out of the park.
Last night, Santos and Yeldon both kind of talked about having a chip on their shoulder. Did you see that?
I do, Clay. I think Yelda, you just take those two kids in particular, they're both underclassmen that I've seen have a dramatic jump in their maturity factor, which is really taking their play to another level, and Santos will be the first to tell you, he's really changed everything from his diet, his perspective, his training. He realizes all the things that he does away from the game, how they affect the game itself. Yelda's it's kind of funny. He's kind of he's a very free spirit, he likes to have a little bit of fun. He's got great humor, but he's also a very, I think, very hard on himself, very high demanding individual in everything he does. But I think he's really excited to see his play. Like I got after him about as good as I got after anybody this fall camp after practice, and he jumped off sides, and I just said, you can't, this is not you. You got to be 100% guy. I can't have you be a guy that jumps off sides, and I think he really understands he's got to be a perfectionist.
Coach, through the time that Dre was out, how much do you think that elevated the play of the linebackers?
Dre Greenlaw? Oh, yeah. Well, it probably did help in a way that it forced those other guys. Scooter really grew into a leadership role, and those two guys out there together look pretty good, and maybe Scooter wouldn't have developed as fast as a voice on the field, or the leadership role if Dre was out there, I guess. It'd be fair to say. Although Dre, he's not a big talker. He's more of an action guy. He handles his own business. We haven't put it on him to handle the others as well. But Scooter naturally, he's a high school quarterback. He's a high school middle linebacker. He always has that leadership role kind of born into his gene. So that's there. I tell you, the other guys have been very impressive. Is Grant Morgan. Grant would probably be the guy that would go in at both positions. Although D Walks had a nice little run here in camp the last 2 weeks, Grant Morgan is a very good football player.
Fully had a good year last year.
Yeah.
With this fall camp, what do you think?
Again, we're going to lean on him. He's got to be that guy. Him and Andre are both. I've learned this a long time ago in this profession. If you got one corner, you got none. If you got two, you got something. And I think those two guys together bring a lot to the table. I think the other guys, we've got three guys backing them up, and Brito, Shevin, and Cameron Curl that are great upside for young guys. But those two guys in particular, I think Ryan and Andre have challenged themselves to take it to another level and have been very, very aggressive in their practice skills.
You still rep Eugene and all inside?
Nate, no, we haven't. We've kind of, and that's a conscientious decision that we made, and Paul and I and Chad, we kind of felt that we were, he's a high school safety. He was one of those guys because he is so smart. Literally, if he was in here, you would see him writing down more stuff than you guys. He writes down every note. When we have a public speaker come in, he's taking notes. He actually spoke to the team about taking notes. His papa had taught him that, you can learn something from everyone when they talk, and he literally writes down everything. So I thought, and this is common sometimes as coaches, you become so reliable on a kid that has high IQ, football IQ, that you're like, oh, he can do this, oh, he can do this, oh, he can do this, and you cloud him. He played all three linebacker positions, but we didn't allow him to get great at anything. And So when we put him at outside linebacker and restricted his vision, and we kind of stayed with it.
Following up on Clay's question, do you think the whole team has that chip?
Well, I think we all do, hopefully, right? I mean, so one of the things I've said all along is, no one liked to live to the end of last season, but if you own it and you breathe it and live it every day, it's going to create that edge to you. And if we had been a 9 or 10 win team, everybody would have just kept patting us on the back and saying, hey, you're doing good and all that. Now it's caused a lot of banter that gives you guys something to talk about, people in general, and people are going to talk, right? So if we had won those other 2 games, everybody would be like, oh, they're making their push. It'd be such a different outlook. But I think because of that happening, that edge that was created through that, we've been able to capitalize on it and be able to run with it.
But you mentioned Brian Wallace, the guy who wants more consistency out of him. So how's he done?
2 things. I think we this is Kurt, right? You guys have interviewed Kurt. I mean, he's a thinker. He's an O-line guy with great deep thinker. And so we took the walkie-talkie helmets that we use for the quarterbacks, and we put them in Bree Wall's helmet to just try and give him. So Kurt's literally talking in his. We can't use it during a game, so don't think you got an inside story there. But he literally would, from the time B. Wall walked out of the huddle till he lined up to right before the snap, would be giving him some coaching directions, and it's been awesome to see that change. Now we're going to wean that out of there, So, but it allowed him. The one thing that we kind of would said is, you can tell a lot from a defensive alignment how they're aligned to you, whether you're a tight alignment, a wide alignment, a head up alignment, or the guy outside of you. If he's got great width, he's probably not coming, but if he's real tight, he might be coming across your face. And those things just had to be fine tuned with Brian, and it's been a game changer.
Speaking of that, the NFL used us for years. Do you think that would be a good thing to incorporate?
We have. So I'm on the rules committee, and we've I think for the last 3 years we've been right on the cusp of. I think there's a couple teams that have experimentally tried to use them actually during spring ball and during competition. I ordered them and got them for the quarterbacks last year during fall camp, I believe it was last year, or during the spring. I know our quarterbacks hated it. They wanted to take it away from Enos after the first period because he's talking a little bit of noise in their ear and they can't do anything about it. It's good that they don't have the ability to communicate back with him as a rule of thumb.
You guys haven't been using those quarterback things in fall camp?
Yeah, we did, and then we just kind of when we wanted Cole and Ty in particular to start taking the strides without Dan, being in their ear. I think it's a good teaching tool early on, but you don't want to get addicted to it, or you don't want to obviously until they change the rule. When we get them there full time, you don't want it to be a Band-Aid for them.
You think they will?
I do. I think we're probably very close. So a year ago, they actually passed a rule that would allow us to use electronics on the sidelines, and then they came in and rescinded it about 2 months later just because they realized the cost factor. So my guess as the Power 5 continue to flex their muscle and allow things to start happening without financial restrictions, I think that would be one of the first ones.
You said the other day you have gum in your office because everybody loves gum. But then you said you never chewed gum. Did you have a bad experience with gum?
It's just, I literally have I don't have many of these, but I have a very, very strong dislike for things that stick to my teeth. So gum sticks to my teeth. I just don't like it. I probably should eat more things that stick to my teeth. I'd probably lose weight, but I don't like gum. No, well, I did. I know Bob's a little bit out there. I know you've been jammed up ever since that comment the other day.
Weird. I just kind of blew me away.
It's weird. You like gum?
But you
See, to me, that's weird.
You said everybody loves gum, then you said I've never chewed gum.
I just don't. Probably less than 10 pieces my whole life.
Everybody loves gum but you.
My mom and dad, we didn't have sweets, so no gum.
They have sugar.
Well, that's a good point.
It's probably in here, but so if someone's taking Paul's spot and food.
Chad will be upstairs. I don't know if we put that in there. Yeah, I think it's in there. Chad is, Chad and John have been lights out. They've been really, Chad has taken, in my opinion, between Randy and Dwayne, 2 guys that have been fairly inconsistent and made them into really consistent football players. I'm excited to watch them. And John up front, the growth and development of Sosa, Bijan, TJ Smith, Austin Capps. It's just, I'm very excited for him.